Welcome, I'm Sebastian Mahfood, and you are listening to WCAT Radio, the on-air wing of En Route Books and Media, bringing you the dulcet sounds of Catholic wisdom, as we welcome today The Lost Voice, with John Studi and Jacob Nelson.
Welcome to Lost Voice Radio. This is John Studi along with my good friend Jake Nelson, who is absolutely in stitches because he cannot believe the absolutely ridiculous.
So I learned one thing in life, and this was just before the show started today. If Studi ever asks you to look anything up in Google regarding any kind of infection or sea turtles or anything, just don't do it. Studi, you are the worst human being I know.
I am, and I think I picked somewhat up from my sister. She has been working as a nursing assistant for a long time, and she's weird. Like, she worked in dialysis for a good number of years, and her favorite thing, she told me, was poking
okay, we're moving on.
Okay, all right, never mind.
You are the worst. You might subject me to your insanity, but I don't want our listening audience
to be subjected. But they can't actually see what's going on.
Okay, but still, I think, you paint a clear enough picture that our imaginations go to the place and construct what your words are implying.
Jacob, that is the kindest thing somebody has said to me about my speaking abilities that I've heard in a very long time. Thank you.
You're welcome. My awful, horrendous, terrible friend. You look like a botfly infection to me. Oh. I love you.
If you ever want to terrify our friend, Chihuahua. I'll try to think of not using her name. I'll use a nickname. Show her that.
She doesn't listen, Evie.
She doesn't. She should, though. We should send this to her and say we mentioned her.
Yeah.
And then she look up botfly infections. Listeners, please don't do this.
Good. Yeah, good call. This is the one time, actually, that I would say listen to what Studi has to tell you. Don't look it up. Usually, though, you know what's right by what Studi says and then do the opposite.
That's actually... I tried to use that with Michael today. Sort of. We were getting ready for dinner.
Wait. Proper Catholic morality, then, is apophatic Studi wisdom or something.
Yes. No, I try to reverse psychology Michael, because for dinner we'll often sit down and he'll want to sit wherever we don't want him to be, on Daddy's lap. If we want to sit him in the high chair, he wants to sit in the couch chair. If we needed him to sit in the couch chair, he wants to sit in the high chair. And so today I told my wife, as she was getting him ready, I said try telling him. Try making a decision for him, because he wasn't deciding whether he wanted to sit in the couch chair or the high chair.
Right.
Excuse me. To say, okay, Michael, we're going to sit in the one that you don't want to, so the high chair in this case. Yeah. And he says, no, I don't want to sit in the couch chair. I'm like, no, we said the high chair. We're not sitting in the high... No, not the high chair, the couch chair, high chair either. And so he was not having any of our shenanigans. He outsmarted us. At the same time, though, I don't think you can really use... reverse psychology on a sociopath or a psychopath. Just kidding. Kind of toddlers are a little bit crazy.
Yeah, a little bit.
Like today, we were building Lincoln Logs, and I built this great house, all right?
Was it tremendous?
It was tremendous. It was huge. It used like 98% of the blocks, and I was just about to put the finishing touches on there with the roof, and then Michael comes over, and he looks at me in the eye, and he reaches down and just tears it to shreds. It was sad. My own son bullies me.
Can you blame him?
No. He takes my lunch money, too. Which I don't understand, because he doesn't use any of it at daycare. Unless...
He's got to pay me for protection.
Protection money?
Yeah.
From Matthias?
Yeah.
Yeah, No, we got to pay him for protection money from Whitley. I saw the way Whitley was eyeing your baby. Probably do the same to Michael.
We have a dear friend who has a beautiful baby boy, Whitley, which you apparently don't know the name of.
That was one time, Jake. One time, but 3 times.
Yeah, one meeting, but like all day. But he's almost 7 months and 23 pounds. And just to put that in perspective, Michael, your son, is 2 years 2 months and weighs in at 26 pounds.
26 pounds.
Yeah, so there you go.
And Michael's particularly small, but it sounds like they actually printed off another piece of paper in order to get him on a chart. Whitley, that is, yeah. Well, and the reason why I kept calling him Wesley, and the only reason why I thought that is I'm thinking, geez, what do they feed him? Just Reese's peanut butter cups all day? And so I thought Buttercups.
Oh, okay.
Wesley.
Yeah.
As you wish. Ergo, he eats lots of Reese's peanut butter cups.
Don't
why
get in a land war with Russia.
Oh, especially in the winter. That's particularly bad. Or even a land war in Asia in general.
And what was the other one? Don't get into a match of wits with a Sicilian.
When life is on the line. Death is on the line. Yeah. I don't remember exactly what the quote is.
I don't remember. We'll have to watch Princess Bride again.
You monster. How could I ever endure such a tragic fate of watching a classic movie? Oh, I don't know either.
Studi, we have one more session to go on our Intercultural Competencies Workshop Module 5 thing.
We do, and this is actually my favorite one so far.
Well, that's good.
For reasons we discussed earlier.
Well, we didn't discuss them on the air.
No, we didn't.
Yeah.
That's fine. But we'll discuss the points of this module on the air.
Fair enough.
And no, you first.
No, go ahead.
No, you first.
All right. I was just going to say I'm really excited to wrap this up. Not that it's been bad. There's been some difficult points that I'm really confused by the bishops on in terms of, Catholicity and goodness.
And proper pastoral theological principles. And
yeah. And then there's some other really good stuff. So maybe for the first half hour, 45 minutes, we can go through Module 5 because I think it is shorter and simpler than some of the other ones. And then we can maybe wrap up the Competencies Workshop as a whole in the last 15 minutes.
Sure.
And then I want to do a little preview for next week because I am next week is probably the show I've been most excited about so far.
Is this the thing we're doing?
Yes.
That we talked about?
It's the thing we're doing.
All right.
And I came up with a game that we can play.
A game?
Yeah.
Ooh.
I haven't come up with the proper alliteration yet, but it'll be something like...
Wait. Do you want to save it for the end?
Yeah, maybe. I'll try and come up with some alliteration in the middle of the show when I normally do other things besides listening to you when you're talking. So I'll work on next week's show while you're talking.
Okay, things. Good idea.
Deal?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
So Module 5.
Module 5, you're right. Yeah, right back here.
Goals: to experience a spirituality that supports intercultural ministry and reconciliation. 2, to focus on the developmental process for ecclesial integration and inclusion, specifically in diverse parish settings, including competencies for building relationships, effective communication, and decision-making. And number 3, to identify models for effective pastoral responses, principles, and practices that shape fruitful ministry in intercultural settings.
You almost sound like you could be a GPS system. Or something.
Yeah, and I'm usually pretty good at not being monotone. And
no, that wasn't monotone.
But,
it was just...
I have had no sleep in the last however long I can remember of my life. Yay, parenthood.
Welcome to parenthood. You just, I don't know. Yeah, childhoods are interesting, too. Michael was staying up tonight being a punk and, I want a snack, I want to eat food. I'm like, no, kid. Fine. Have a snack.
Well, that's when you just play a good old Rolling Stones song.
What's that one? Are you going to play it right now?
Yeah, I'm going to try.
We're doing this?
Yeah, we're going to try.
And then we'll get into things.
I don't know if this is really legal for me to do over the air, but, what are they going to do? We're Catholic. We don't have any money.
I have a story to tell you.
Okay. So just sing this to Michael next time. Do you know this song? Of course you don't. You lived a sheltered childhood.
Did we talk about it in the show? I
don't think so.
Speaking of cultural competencies, I am culturally incompetent in American culture. I have no idea what's going on anywhere in the world. Even in my own nation. I feel like I'm more invested into Korean culture than I am the culture of the United States. It's making me sick.
We're going to fast forward a little bit here.
Okay. Oh, yes. Of course. Yep. I know what song this is. You know, you try to teach it to a toddler. But when he starts like flipping out and gnawing his way through crib bars, you start saying, alright, you can have some crackers. You're not a termite, son. Or a beaver.
Well, if the crib looks like a prison, why don't you just shut the light off and then shut the door? And then go downstairs.
And then turn his like projector into a spotlight to make sure no escapes happen.
Yep.
So little happy moons running around on the floor.
Right.
I think that's brilliant. Speaking of brilliant.
Yes.
Or at least good. One of the things I like right off the bat here is it seems that this 5th module is actually aiming towards virtue. I see.
Really?
Yes. Which is
Imagine
good.
that.
This is good. Building relationships, effective communication, and decision making. Building relationships, of course, that is oriented towards justice and charity, because the common good is best served when we are in right relationship with one another, which almost goes without saying. Effective communication is a means to that end, but in itself is also an end because it requires somebody to develop temperance and prudence. And then also decision-making, which is directly related to that virtue of prudence as well.
Correct.
And so this cultural competency workshop, or module rather, is something I really like. I like the way they're starting off with these things. Understanding that a lot of this comes down to the pastors and those who are actually in ministry need themselves to be virtuous people in order to even bring about real cultural competency in cultural relationships. And a context is becoming more multicultural. Can't have that good communication if you're some sort of horrible person.
Like if I'm texting my wife while you're talking.
Come on, Jake. I'm hoping for you here. All right.
No,
that's all right. I know I love you too.
But I think you're talking about is obviously right on. And see, I can do things like text my wife about important matters, like getting our own baby to bed while you're talking, because I trust you to actually give the proper Catholic understanding of things. So I don't really have to worry about, stepping in and saving the day in some anti-heretical heroism.
I am going to plumb the depths of my heretical knowledge and drop a really obscure heresy on you sometime in the next few weeks.
Okay, perfect.
And we'll see if you can pick it up, all right? Listeners, this is a game for you as well. Call in, and you'll win a prize.
Is this Studiism?
This is Studiism.
Great.
Which my hair... Oh, never mind. I'll talk about that heresy later.
The building relationships aspect of it, though, also gets to the heart of how we reflect the Trinitarian nature, and that the Holy Trinity is a communion of persons, and because we're made in the image and likeness of God, and in Genesis, God says, let us make man like ourselves, or in our image. We are communicative by nature. We are social by nature, and so it's only fitting that the first goal, or the second goal, of the 5th module is about building relationships as well as effective communication, because you don't really communicate with yourself typically. I mean, you do.
That's the only way.
I guess I do too. I write notes to myself at work.
Like love notes?
Yeah.
Because that's what I do too. Just to get those little encouragements throughout the day because they're not coming from anywhere else.
Judy, you are so beautiful. Dash me.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so today Michael and I went to the park and we came back and picked up a flower and brought it home, and Michael gave it to my wife, and he said, I love you, Mommy, and then he said, you're pretty like a flower. And then, because I told him to say that, and then he started saying it to me. I'm like, no, Michael, don't say that Daddy's pretty like a flower.
I'm manly,
like a thorn bush.
like a cow.
Like a cow.
Because steak. I don't know.
Steak is good. No.
But anyway, the third one, decision making. You have anything to say about that?
That
I've made the decision that I don't want to speak further on that.
Me either. I think we've talked about virtue enough. I mean, people are probably tired of growing as individuals and learning how to live a good life at this point in their lives. It's kind of like our good president when he was campaigning that we'd get tired of winning.
I'm not tired yet.
I'm not either. I am.
I need to start winning.
We do need to start winning. Anyway, I don't know what's going on here right now, Jake, but we can, I think, go to some of these outcomes. Demonstrating a clear understanding of the principles of ecclesial integration versus assimilation. Now, that's one that I kind of want to talk about a little bit here.
Yeah, absolutely.
In terms of that distinction there. Second outcome would be identify different parish models in the context of cultural diversity and a spiritual mission of reconciliation, and then apply the developmental process of ecclesial integration and its 5 principles to one's own parish or Catholic institution. Now, we might not be able to get to all of this today, but I do want to hit a few of those key points here. And the way the USCCB structures this here is following the beginning of it talks about something I think is very appropriate considering it's USCCB, United States Conference of Catholic Bishops. Starts with the methodology of the Church in America. And that's one thing that we certainly need to understand as Americans, is we do have a particular culture, even though our nation is fairly young, not even 300 years old yet, which is practically nascent in terms of historical cultures. I mean, the Egyptian nation has been around for thousands of years, and so has the Chinese culture, and they have very strong national identities. The United States, on the other hand, what our national identity is, and I think this is an absolutely incredible thing, which is in a way unique to the American project, is that we are a melting pot. St. Raphael's recently had a booyah for the Knights of Columbus, and a booyah, you just take any old thing, you toss it in there, and it makes the soup delicious. In most situations, anyway. I've only had booyah once, so I can't speak too much on that. But in either case, with the United States, what we're hoping to do is integrate the good from all the different cultures and find a way to blend the flavors, so to speak, to create something that offers a good taste to the world. That's what our goal is. Whether or not we always accomplish that is a different thing, and that's due to human sin, not as much as the nature of man to express some sort of goodness of what God has created him to be. But I think there's a few things that as the church in America we need to have in order to do proper ministry. And the first one that they have here is Catholic identity. Now, Jake, we had a meeting last Wednesday.
Okay.
And one of the things that you said after this little training session that we had was referring to liturgy. And you offered this basic sales principle, and I love this.
Okay.
If you are offering a product, just say you're selling Jake Nelson's Italian leather shoes or whatever.
Well, it properly would be Giovanni Palumbo's Italian leather shoes.
Giovanni or is
Giovanni?
Is it Giovanni? Okay,
Yeah.
All right. Is Giovanni the name for John? Is that
yeah?
Is that how it goes? No, Giovanni. Interesting. It's very close.
Yeah.
Jake, we're so close.
Well, Giovanni is the more proper pronunciation. The Italians don't pronounce long vowels with every vowel like Americans tend to do.
Oh, interesting.
So it's not Giovanni, it's Giovanni.
Huh.
It's a little smoother.
That's helpful, because I actually might need to learn Italian. So
Perfect!
You tell me things.
I will.
How much Italian do you know?
All of it.
Oh.
I know all of the Italian that I know.
Oh.
That's less impressive.
Oh. That'd bring me down a heck of a rabbit trail, so I'm not going to go down that way. Look at that self-control there, Jake. Temperance. So Catholic identity. So you're talking, okay, so you got Giovanni Palumbo's leather Italian shoes or whatever.
Uh-huh.
And then you've got like 8 different leather Italian shoe companies in the same strip mall. Number one, violating another sales principle, which is location, location, location. You don't plant 6 Italian shoe companies.
8.
8? How many did I say? I said 8?
Yeah.
Oh, originally I was thinking 6.
No.
Well, 2 of them closed down. 2 of them closed down since I last said it because of the poor business practices.
Fair enough.
But if you are selling a similar product within the same genus, so to speak, you need to have something that is specifically different, right? In order to make your product stand out.
Uh-huh.
And so one of the things that you had mentioned was that if we as Catholics want to have proper evangelization, we can't simply have another parish that just looks like a Catholic church. I mean, not a Catholic church, a non-Catholic church, a Protestant church. Right. With the guitars, with the electronic screens and drums and playing contemporary contemporary praise music. We need to do something that is distinctively Catholic. And I like that. So that was good. But there's a number of other things.
Well, before we go forward with this...
Yeah, I'm so good. I'm good.
I want to make sure that our listeners remember that, Studi, you and I went to a conference on evangelization last Wednesday.
Yes.
And that will be highly referenced next week with our stupendous show of amazingness.
That's secret until the end of this episode.
Yes, because we went to this conference and then we went on a little walk around downtown St. Paul, venting our anger about things and stuff.
And it was righteous indignation.
It was actually righteous. It was unfounded.
It was very... There are certain things that happen within parish ministry that make one very upset. So the Catholic identity, but what they say is the Catholic identity here is encountering Christ leading to conversion, which means to turn one's heart, or one's mind and heart around. Now, Jacob.
Yes, sir.
Do you have anything to say about metanoia?
I do.
You do?
Yes.
You do?
Yes.
Because I know this is like a thing of yours.
This is a thing of mine. I talk about this all the time, and I think at one time you're like, that's interesting. And that was it.
Yeah.
No, I've given a talk on this a lot of times, actually. Conversion, is not a one-time event, it's a lifetime event.
Yep.
And so we cannot look at our first encounter with Christ as our only conversion. But conversion needs to happen throughout our lives. And if you know anything about the spiritual life, it's tough. And sometimes it kind of sucks.
Yeah.
Because it's hard.
Yep.
And it feels like you're abandoned.
Yep. Especially when you get really good at it.
And then you look up at God and you shake your fist and go, why, God? If this is how you treat your friends, it's no wonder you have so few. Thank you, Teresa of Avila.
Oh, that's a great quote, isn't it?
It is.
That's fantastic.
And then I think you get a little bit on edge, and so you look at people who are teetotalers and say it pleases God to punch them in the face. Thank you, St. John Chrysostom. But conversion is a lifelong journey. And in the Greek, there are two words for conversion. Metanoia, which is a spiritual turning or an internal turning or a mental turning, going from one direction and moving towards another. And then there's epistrepho, which is a physical turning. So if I'm walking down the street and I need to, say, go into Giovanni Palumbo's Italian Shoe Emporium, and I need to take a right.
Is this going to be a new business venture for us?
I think so. It'll be right next to Stoodle's Noodles.
No necessary relation between the leather shoes and the noodles that are served.
Right. Yes.
Yes.
I just thought of a link, but we'll move on.
Yes.
Thank you, Temperance.
Yes, good.
Anyway, so I need to take a right. That's an epistrepho. I'm physically changing my direction. The metanoia is the internal disposition and change. And so it's likened to imminent and transitive activity, but that's a whole other show.
Yes, it is.
Anyway, with conversion, the initial conversion needs to be an internal change of heart, or a metanoia. I'm changing the direction of my life. Interiorly, I'm making new choices. But that doesn't mean anything if I'm not following through with the epistrepho and physically changing the direction I'm going in life. So if I'm a drug addict, if I'm an alcohol addict, if I'm a pornography addict, whatever it is, I need to physically change my habits to avoid those addictions in order to fulfill the metanoia that was first begun. And so the process kind of looks like metanoia leads to epistrepho, leads to a deeper metanoia.
It's like conversion.
Is that what you wanted?
Yeah, I'll take that. Now, with that in mind, one thing I think that we miss out on, and this just drives me up the wall, is that when we look at our Catholic identity, and this is because of my particular charisms, or at least in part because of my particular charism is for the more intellectual pursuits of the Catholic faith. But we forget about we have the mind and we have the heart, and so very frequently it's about you have a conversion, and so automatically, if you're going to be distinctively Catholic, then you're going to take care of the poor. You're going to help the afflicted. You're going to treat people more kindly, and all of that. Absolutely the case. You're going to have, and even more so, even better. You're going to have a different desire. You're going to have a different will. You're going to want different things, and this is beautiful. We need these things, and we can talk about that in a moment too. That there are certain things. I'm going to shock all of you listeners, all of you modernist listeners. Just kidding. Anybody listening to the show is probably not a modernist.
That's fair.
But something completely contrary to our contemporary understanding of how the world works is that just because you want something doesn't mean you're right in wanting it. Our desires are very frequently wrong. But if we want to have a good, strong Catholic identity, one thing that I think we're really missing out on, and in some ways we've taken a bad hint from our evangelical brothers and sisters about this, who are now realizing their mistake, is we need to have a distinctive and powerful testimony to the Catholic intellectual tradition. A real conversion for anybody who encounters Christ is not only going to be someone who changes their actions, but changes their very mode of thinking, who engages the Catholic way of thought through learning about St. Thomas Aquinas, through understanding sacred scripture in light of tradition, through reading their catechism, through understanding theology. Now, this isn't to say that everybody needs to be a theologian or a philosopher, but everybody should be able to express, insofar as they are able, the basic tenets of their faith. But the thing that happens, and I've talked about this a million times, is that we rarely prepare people to do so.
That's true.
I hardly know any Catholic right now, I hardly know any Catholic right now who hasn't been actively involved either in ministry or has a degree in theology or philosophy, who could explain to me things like the infallibility of the Pope, or even articulate one reason why we as Catholics believe that God exists, or that the Eucharist is truly present or Jesus is truly present in the Eucharist. These are things that we should be able to speak about, and be able to speak about in a natural way. Granted, we don't, again, need to be theologians or offer the deepest reasons for these things, but we need to be able to offer a defense of the hope that we have in us, as it says in 1 Peter 3:15. And I think that's one of the greatest failures of catechesis in the last half century, is not being able to, is not handing on the strength and the distinctiveness of the Catholic intellectual tradition.
Well, the failure of that catechesis it's not catechesis that's to blame, it's that people who have been catechizing have assumed or presumed that people have been evangelized.
Yep.
And on the roadmap of conversion, we need to be evangelized before we can be catechized. We need to be catechized before we can be theologized. And so it's meeting the person of Christ, and then it's learning the what, and then it's learning the why.
I completely agree.
So then, interculturally speaking, we need to make sure that we are on the same page with the other cultures in our parishes, and this gets to the next point in communion, that we are encountering the same Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just thinking about some of the different things I encountered with the Latino population at my last parish, and there's a lot of people in the Latino population that venerate Santa Muerte.
Oh,
that's a really bad thing.
Because it's like actually venerating the devil?
Right. It's worshiping death, ultimately. And very faithful Catholics and Christians in Mexico will venerate Santa Muerte. And this is a really, really bad idea. Terrible idea. One of the worst ideas. And so it comes back to then, are we really encountering the same Jesus? Because if we're elevating Saint Death to the same plane as the body of Christ, are we really encountering the same Jesus then in our spiritual lives?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think number one is interculturally within parishes, there's conversion and then there's communion, and that communion is based on, are we encountering the same Jesus? This is basic evangelization. Have a conversation in some way, bridging the gaps of language and all of that aside. Have a conversation about who is Jesus. Because a lot of cultures get it wrong. American cultures know better than Latino culture. The difference is, at least in Mexico, they have a name for what they worship, Santa Muerte, Saint Death. In America, we worship death, but we're just too cowardly to say it.
Mm-hmm. And the Jesus that we do worship is more often made in our image than we are in his.
Well, that's not the God I know.
Yeah!
Well, what God do you know?
Me? Oh! Then maybe it's not God that you're aware of here.
Yeah. I don't believe in the God that is against gay marriage. Oh, really? So what God do you believe in? Because God's pretty clear in Genesis, Leviticus, Romans,
1 Corinthians.
1 Corinthians.
I think 1st or 2nd Timothy, one of those two.
Yep.
That
the Gospels.
the entire testimony of the tradition of the church for 2,000 years. Natural law. Aristotle likens it to eating dirt. And desiring dirt. Which incidentally is why when I give a talk about homosexuality, I usually preface it by talking about pica. Or pica. Pica.
Pica.
Pica?
I think so.
Okay, I think so too. Which is, for those of you who don't know, people who eat things that aren't food. Like glass or clay. Which isn't what the digestive system is for. It's intrinsically a disordered desire.
Yeah, it's pica.
Pica? Okay.
Yeah.
The same way, homosexuality is an intrinsically disordered desire because of the nature of the reproductive system. I mean, that's very clear. But yeah, like you're saying, we will worship a God that's made more often in our own image.
Right.
And in doing so, we're actually recommitting the original sin, which was to invert the order of creation, making ourselves the arbiters of right and wrong, good and evil, and placing God as maybe even equal. I remember having a conversation with somebody one time, and this is very strange. They said if they ever met God, they think that he and God would have sat down, hashed a few things out, would have genuinely learned from one another, and both of them would have benefited from the exchange. And I didn't know what to think or say, because that's so.
I've numbered all the hairs on your head. I knew you before I knew you in the womb. But God, you can learn from me.
You sure can. Because I have different experiences that God has. So there's things that I know that he doesn't. Well,
right.
Sure. In either case, I think that this is an important aspect of trying to build that bridge between cultures when it comes to our communion, understanding that we're worshiping the exact same Christ. And frequently between different cultures, what we'll do is try to build Jesus in our own image.
Yeah.
Instead of being conformed to his. And meeting somebody who comes from a different culture, because of the way that they communicate and because of the way that they grew up with a faith, they will very often have a different angle on Christ than what we have. And sometimes that can come across as perhaps contradictory. But it's good for us to recognize the truths that people might bring to the table in that situation, so that we can start developing a fuller picture of who Christ is and image ourselves after him.
Right. I'm absolutely with you on that.
Oh, that's good. I'm glad that we're not going to
which leads into solidarity.
Ooh, solidarity. It does, actually.
Yeah, which is the next point.
Yeah, it is. Wow,
nice bridge without making a bridge.
I know. We're really good at that game.
Yeah.
This is a really good puppy shop, by the way.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Where'd you get that?
I got it at our local Hy-Vee.
Oh.
A friendly smile in every aisle.
Ooh. We are not paid spokesmen for Hy-Vee.
But we could be.
But we should be.
Oh, yeah. The quote that they take for solidarity is when Jesus asked Simon Peter, son of John, do you love me? And it says here, Jesus reconnects the parish leadership to himself and to the community, more specifically to new immigrants. That kind of confuses me.
Hold on, let me read that. Where was that again?
Under solidarity. It goes on to say they overcome stereotypes and fear by getting to know new immigrants and recognize each of them as one of their own. Parish leaders rediscover that the victim is made in the image and likeness of God and is therefore of inestimable value. So I get what they're going for. It's just the scripture verse is really kind of odd because in which gospel is that?
It's John. That's the end of
Gospel of John. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's what I thought. In that gospel, Jesus asked Peter threefold, "Do you love me?" You know, Simon, son of John, "Do you love me?" "Yes, Lord, I love you more than these." "Yes, Simon, but do you love me?" "Yes, I love you." Okay. Finally, "Do you love me?" And that's when Peter breaks down and weeps. Twofold reason. One, he realized that this is a threefold replacement of his threefold denial of Christ. But secondly, actually, fascinating, I wonder if I'm going to stump Studi on this one. No? You already know it? Okay. Great.
I have no idea.
Okay, perfect. If you look at the original language, which I believe is Latin.
Greek. No,
it's Greek. You're right, it is Greek.
Yeah.
Yes. So
you so often think of the Vulgate.
Right. Because I'm so vulgar.
Yes.
Yes. So in the original Greek, when Jesus asks Peter the first question, "Do you love me?" Does he ask? I don't have my Bible with me. Does he ask, "Do you love me?" straight out on the first one, or is it, "Do you love me more than these?"
I have to look at that too. Give me 2 seconds.
Look it up.
I think he says. I think it's agape. I think he says agape, and then Peter says philia. And they says no, Peter,
that's
freaking agape.
That's not what I'm asking.
Oh,
because there's 2 points to this.
Oh, okay.
But yes, that's one of the directions I was going. So in the original language, Jesus asks Peter in the sense of agape, which is a self-sacrificial love, "Do you love me?" And Peter responds, "Yes, Lord, I love you," with the term philia or phileo, which is a love of friendship or it's a really basic kind of love. I love puppy chow kind of love.
Oh yeah,
which I do. It's fantastic.
This is actually more eros. Believe it or not, yeah, sensual. It's like a sensual.
That's okay. We'll talk about that later. So,
we got problems.
So there's miscommunication on the kind of love, and then Jesus asks again agape, response phileo. Third one, Jesus asks phileo, and it's almost as if Peter got caught with a lack of devotion to Christ. Mm-hmm. And that's why he breaks down and weeps.
Ooh. Sorry, I like the literal commentary, the little translation here.
What's that?
It says, Peter, Jesus says, "Peter, do you love me?" And then it says, "Lord, you know that I have affection for you."
Ooh.
Ooh.
Say that to your girlfriend in high school. Not going to work out so well.
It's like that 70s show. "Guys, Donna said I love you, and I told her I love cake. I'm still okay, right?"
Oh, man.
If you're still listening, God bless you.
Thank you for your perseverance and patience. But the other part of that is Jesus asks Peter if he loves him. And he says, "Yes, I have affection for you." I know it. It's the first one. He asks, "Do you love me more than these?" And he says, "Yes, Lord, I have affection for you." And then Jesus asks, "Well, do you love me?" He takes away the comparison to the others, and he just asks Peter straight away, "Do you yourself have love for me?" There's no more comparison. It's easy sometimes to say, "Well, yeah, I love God more than the guy next to me because the guy next to me is an idiot. He's a loser and he doesn't go to church and blah, blah, blah." Well, it's easy to say I love God more than him, but really do I? And so God takes away the comparison on the second one and says, "Well, what about you specifically? Do you love me? Forget the other apostles, but do you love me?" And once again he says, "Yes, Lord, I have affection for you." Ouch.
And he still doesn't get it. That's what I love about Peter. Because not long after Jesus says, okay, then, feed my sheep, feed my lambs, feed my sheep. Or feed my lambs, and then feed my sheep. And then Peter points over to John, the beloved disciple, and says, what about this guy? And then Jesus is like, dude, honestly, if he stays until I come again, don't you worry about that. You follow me.
Right.
Peter just doesn't get it so often. He sticks his foot in his mouth. But then you go from that to post-Holy Spirit at Pentecost.
And he converts 5,000 and cuts them to the heart.
Yeah. Without even using a knife or something. I mean, that's impressive. And then.
So anyway, the solidarity bit here, I see what they're trying to do and talk about how we need to be in solidarity with immigrant communities and work with them and walk with them in the difficulties. And that's true, and we need to see how they're made in the image and likeness of God and aid them in assimilating into the community while still retaining the beautiful aspects of their own culture. I was just thrown off by the scripture they used.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's a little weird.
It's really weird. Why not use some of the scriptures of the Old Testament?
So, you could relate, I guess, to Matthew 25, where Jesus says, if separates sheep from goats, to those on his right hand, he says, blessed are you, enter to the joy of my Father, for when I was hungry, you fed me, when I was a stranger.
Yeah, but then why not just use that?
I don't know.
That's a whole nother, I don't want to get into nitty-gritty stuff like that right now. But points of solidarity, very good.
Solidarity is a good thing. Let's keep doing it.
Okay.
All right.
Mission. Studi.
Missio. Great. Which, of course, means sent. And this is one of the, I think, amazinger things about this particular module. Because Catholics, in my experience, unfortunately have forgotten, in many ways, their call to mission. Sherry Weidel has a great book out there called Forming Intentional Disciples, and there's a chapter called Breaking the Silence.
Ooh, fantastic.
I know, things even fell down when I said that. You listeners probably didn't hear that. But my water bottle fell on the ground.
You're moving the elements by your words.
Wow! I don't know what that is. All right. But as an evangelical, I mean, quite literally, we'd stop people on street corners, or you'd get a feeling that somebody wanted to hear the gospel. And this is not necessarily a bad thing, but you'd stop and you go over to them and ask them a question. Have you heard the good news? Which, did I ever talk about the missionaries that I met with from my old church? On air. Did I tell you about it, Jake? Though.
You told me you got really angry.
I don't know. Yeah, I got a little bit angry. Well, there's a couple reasons for that. One, just real quick. They said, I have a religious spirit, and it makes me laugh when people say that, because then I always respond to them, okay, what's your religion? It's about rituals and rules and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, okay, so Jesus just commands the disciples to go baptize people and leaves us a sacrament when he says, a ritual, when he says, do this in remembrance of me. And then Paul emphasizes that again in 1 Corinthians 11:23 through 30. I mean, there's a bajillion. And then James says, true and acceptable religion before our Father is this, that you take care of orphans and widows. If you are going to say that Jesus hates religion, then I'm not sure which Bible you're reading. But anyway, it's a different story. What I'm trying to say here is even as an evangelical, this is a beautiful thing, that they have such a passion for the gospel and for the saving knowledge of Jesus Christ, they will talk to any schmuck about Christ. They will go out there and they will put themselves at risk socially. It's going to be awkward, and it very frequently is, and it very will often disturb the peace, so to speak, in terms of people getting along. People don't like to talk about religion nowadays, which is exactly what Catholics have fallen into. We don't want to make waves. We don't
even want our pastor at the homily to talk about religion.
Yeah.
Sad.
Yeah.
So sad.
It is. I mean, that's what we say anyway. We do want him to, though.
Right.
But one thing that we as Catholics absolutely have to do, whether we're Anglos or Latinos or African or Asian, is and Africans. Oh my gosh! In my parish, the Catholics who have come from Africa are incredible evangelists. For some reason, they're all really good at preaching. It's insane, and they have these beautiful stories about how God took care of them. and giving testimony to the faith. And I wonder if that's something about the culture over there and exactly what it is and how we can adopt that into our American scheme. But we as Catholics, regardless of our culture, are called to bear witness to Christ. And the entire church, as it says in the Intercultural Competency module here, the entire church is by its very nature a missionary church, and every baptized person is called to be a missionary. It's not just priests, it's not just deacons, it's not just bishops, it's not just theologians.
Right.
If you're baptized, you are a missionary.
Well, and the Vatican II talks about this in Lumen Gentium too. Mm-hmm. So
basic stuff.
Right. It's in the Constitution of the Church.
Right.
How many of you are Americans and know your Constitution of America? Great, wonderful. How many of you are Catholic and know the Constitution of the Church? Probably not as many.
No, but you should read it. It's incredible. Lumen Gentium is a wonderful document.
It is.
It is.
It's very enlightening.
Hey! Because Lumen Gentium means light of the world or whatever, light of the nations, like the nations.
Yeah.
And light illuminating linguistic. Anyway.
Right.
But I want to note one thing here. So, Dr. Timothy Herman at the Augustine Institute impressed one thing on us very, very powerfully, is that you cannot give what you do not have.
Mm-hmm.
And so very, very often, we neglect to encounter our Lord Jesus Christ and to experience true conversion, to offer our lives to Him in a loving trust, saying, God, I know that this is hard for me, but I also know that the small little happiness, the small temporal good that I'm giving up to you, you're going to return it to me tenfold and give me an everlasting joy that surpasses all understanding, and that by trusting in you and offering myself up, the peace of God will keep my heart and mind in Jesus Christ. Now, we forget about that, or we don't reflect on how God's affected our lives. And so, listeners, I want to highly encourage you to not only seek after opportunities to encounter the Lord more deeply and to learn more about your faith, but also reflect on your faith daily and how Christ has affected your life and has changed it for the better. And I guarantee if you think about it daily, you're going to find a lot of examples of God's handiwork in your daily experience, which you can point to trusting in Him, which you can share with others. And so a part of the Christian missionary call is to be a missionary to ourselves in understanding where God has called us and brought us to a greater joy and a greater peace through Jesus Christ.
Absolutely.
Hallelujah. Amen.
What else do we have? We only have a few minutes remaining.
We do.
So,
listeners, this is sad. No, I think there's a few practices here that I think are really important. For
get them.
We talked about the process of ecclesial integration and inclusion, and there's a movement here. There's 9 points, which, just practically speaking, that's too many, in my opinion. People remember 3 things, so I guess you can categorize each of these as 3 different things, and then have 3 subpoints. But the first one is reach out and meet people where they are. Oh my gosh, please do this. Jake can say just as much as I am. I can, maybe even more, because he has more experience in youth ministry. But the number one mistake, as far as I'm concerned, that people have when working with youth is they forget what it's like to be a teenager. They forget what it's like to be young. They forget what it's like to live in a culture that is, or even don't even know what it's like to live in a culture that is contrary to the values that you're learning on Sundays and on Wednesdays at church. And you don't meet them where they are at and offer them what they need. We need to meet people where they are and then bring them where they need to go.
Well, if I can do it, honestly, as a crotchety old man, because I'm angry and bitter all the time, and reaching out to high schoolers and actually meeting them where they're at and just getting to know who they are, because it's one of the biggest things high schoolers want, young people want, millennials want, is to be invested into for who they are, not what they do. Mm-hmm. And that just takes some good questions and giving some of your time. If I can do that, pretty much anybody can do that.
Right. I think it's the same thing with people who come from different different cultures, and we're talking about immigrants here in particular, I think, understanding what their particular needs are. If I were an immigrant, if I'm trying to be in solidarity with that population, I'm thinking, I don't really know the language terribly well. If I do speak it, I might not pick up on some of the social nuances in terms of, heck, even as a native English speaker and an American who's been living here for my entire life, there are so many social cues that I miss out on that I think, in a way, I need some help with this kind of stuff. But it talks about, so you need to meet them where they're at. What are the needs that they have? And I think it's also very important to affirm their gifts and contributions, understanding that they have something to offer the church. They have something to offer the community around them, and they want to do it. In fact, this is one of the major problems with millennials exiting the church as quickly as we have been, is because so many people of older generations are refusing to offer positions of leadership and offer positions of influence that we can actually offer and give our talents to. And so we feel as if we do not actually have a place in the church where we can do things. Second point here, and so people, so long story short, we always invite people into the faith community and see if there's a way that we can incorporate their gifts, even if that means giving up something that we think we need complete control over. Movement 2, demonstrate hospitality, make people feel at home. If, that's just basic human sense. In fact, when it comes to Sodom and Gomorrah, I know, interesting transition here. There's other places in Scripture which actually speak of one of the primary sins of Sodom and Gomorrah being the lack of hospitality. What does that tell you? God literally exploded 2 cities with sulfur, fire and brimstone, and left them a pillar or monument of salt.
Yeah, it's fair.
Because they didn't offer hors d'oeuvres, all right? That's so fair. Make sure...
Thanks, by the way, for bringing some munchies.
Hey, you're welcome.
Yeah.
They're good, though, right? I love these things.
Oh, I know.
Oh, they're addicting. You can't, not finish a bag once you open it.
It's true.
But this is one of the things that I find to be true, too. It drives me nuts. You go to a place, you go to a meeting, and they don't offer food or any refreshments. Or you do get there, and you're a youth minister, and all you ever eat is pizza, and the one thing that they offer you that day is pizza.
And not but 1 square of pizza.
And everybody says you have 1 square of pizza. It's like, what are you talking about? This is like a 3-inch by 3-inch thing. I'm a large man. I'm like 160 pounds now, but I'm going to be a large man because that's the final end of all youth ministers, to be very portly.
We have to start wrapping up here.
All right, cool. Organized by developing ministries and ministers. Yes. Do things, and do things that are adaptive to the culture. Build relationships across cultures and ministries. We will do things differently. But, like Extreme Faith Camp, we all use Latin for the prayers. Great way to unify people because it unites us into common language. And there's a billion different ways to do that. Champion leadership and development and formation. I've been doing with confirmation. I'm sorry, I'm going to fly through these. I've been doing confirmation, and I changed things up. In my second year confirmation, the kids aren't learning per se anymore. Now they're teaching. And I'm already getting comments about how just the last 5 weeks have been more fruitful for their spiritual lives of leading middle schoolers, these are high schoolers leading middle schoolers, than the entire 10 years previous of faith formation. And there's a ton of other things that we can continue to go to, but I think the last one is the most important, because this is the final cause, the final goal of what it means to be a parish, which is to fulfill commitment to the mission of the parish. And what is the mission of the parish? To make Jesus Christ known and loved.
Yes, and when mission work has come to its fullness is when they start sending out their own missionaries.
Yes.
That's the measure of successful mission. Mm-hmm. So until you're sending out your own missionaries, priests, religious, brothers and sisters, sanctified marriages, holy marriages, all this stuff, and until these people are coming from your parish and going out, and you can send lay people in your parish to go out and evangelize the neighborhoods, your mission has not yet reached its fullness. So keep working.
Okay. What do you think? We did this whole Intercultural Competencies workshop, went through modules. We had our ups, our downs, we laughed, we cried a lot. It moved me.
We laughed a lot, too.
We did.
Yeah. I would say, overall, this is a great thing the USCCB attempted to do. And I say attempted, not that, it's a complete abject failure. Trust me, I know a thing about complete abject failure. I look at myself every day.
Jake.
I'm kidding. But kind of. No, really. But I think they definitely missed some opportunity. Mm-hmm. They really missed some opportunities in this. I think it's a good first step, but they, as a conference, really need to go back and revisit some things. Get rid of the liberation theology, for one.
Oh, do you mean the actual, heresy?
Yeah. That needs to go. And I think there were a lot of things last week that we didn't get to, but I think the USCCB outlook on racism is not actually in accord with reality.
Right, I don't think so either. And that's one of the things that bother me too, is I feel like a lot of the modules absorbed some of the zeitgeist of the culture.
Yes.
In particular, with regards to race, and again, racism is sure and active because we're human, we're fallen, we have a history of that here in the United States and everywhere else, I might add. But I think we've come a long way since the 1960s, and there's no way in the world that post civil rights that we're doing worse in terms of racism now. Yeah. But overall, you're right. The church is growing, and it's growing most in the greatest leaps and bounds in the immigrant community, and any parish that wants to survive needs to understand and recognize that and reach out to these people who are coming in, because right now the first generation immigrants do extraordinarily well. They're consistent and involved with the faith. They invest their money as much as they can possibly give, kind of like the widow with the 2 pennies, and they offer their entire being to the church, and this is a beautiful and wonderful thing. Yes. But because we do not catch them, because we do not have adequate ministries towards these different immigrant communities, the next generation is just as bad as the rest of the United States.
Right.
Leaving at rates of up to 95%.
Right.
So, we need this desperately.
Well, this will lead into next week, actually, and I think next week is going to lend a helping hand to what Intercultural Competencies sought to do, which is to build Catholic culture across cultures, with the Catholic principles unifying all peoples regardless of their ethnic background. And let's just say I have a few interesting things to say. Studi, I have a game for you right now.
Okay.
And we're going to call this game Hymn or Pop Song. Can you tell me, is this a hymn or a pop song?
Can we do this live? We have to start doing this live.
I think so, yeah.
Is that Styx?
That is not Styx. That is a hymn by David Haas.
Oh my gosh. Oh, it's a mess.
Next week we are going to be talking about, and maybe following weeks, we're going to be talking about church music and the reality of what Catholic culture really is. And unfortunately, the Catholic Church in America, we have absolutely absorbed Protestantism, part and parcel, all of it. Today at church, we sang a Quaker song.
What?
Yeah.
Which one was that?
I don't know. Something about how being simple is a gift. Not one mention of God.
Huh.
That this is great, because it isn't, going to Mass about the supreme and divine worship of God. But we're going to just sing, songs that totally exclude God. So, Studi threw his wallet, so that's...
Marks the complete show.
Signal that we gotta go. So next week we're going to be talking about Catholic Church music, liturgy, and we're going to be playing some games. We're going to be talking about specific songs, and one thing that we're going to do is go through really common songs that are sung in Catholic churches and explain the heresy in them. Because Arius spread his heresy in the 4th century by song. And people don't realize that, but the reason why Arianism spread so far is because of song. And we have plenty of heresy in our Catholic hymnals today. So we're going to have some fun with this.
We are. Should we try to really work on it and do a history of heresy through the hymnals? See?
History of heresy in the hymnals. This would be a great book.
It would be. It's really depressing, to be honest with you. Yeah, we got to invite Paul on. I think this would be great.
Yeah.
He'd have fun with that one. All right, well, Jacob, and any other listeners, I mean, you can write me an email too, Jake, if you want.
Maybe I will.
But if you have any questions, comments, concerns, fears, write us at lostvoice@wcatradio.com. That's lostvoice@wcatradio.com. For John Studi, Jacob Nelson, and all of us here at WCAT Radio, and this song,
and this one is actually,
and this is actually sick. I honestly couldn't tell. Have a great day. God bless, and we hope that we brought you some Catholic wisdom.
We hope you enjoyed the program and will join us back for another show on WCAT Radio. This is Sebastian Mahfood. Good day.